Oh, f***'s sake. How many different ways can I say I don't watch the show anymore?
Are you okay, honey?
Ugh. Persons, ponies, they're the same no matter what. I keep saying I pretty much stopped watching the show, but I keep getting bombarded with questions of, what did I think of this episode? Hey, what did you think of season 9? Isn't this character cool? Ugh, it's maddening.
Yeah, I can imagine that must be a hassle. Do you need a hug?
What I need is for it to stop. I am busy working on other things.
You know, I still watch the show. I wonder if anyone would be interested in to hear my thoughts on...
Thanks for volunteering, babe. You can take care of this mess. I have a game to work on.
Then it looks like a job for me.
Yep. Y'all want reviews? Go to my stallion over here. This is Acharky's review of Season 1 of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic.
Let's do this! Hello everyone! It certainly has been interesting seeing how MLP as a franchise and as a fandom has grown since Friendship is Magic made its debut all the way back in 2010. While the series has reached its finale, I still wanted to give my own opinions on the series and what it has meant to me over the years. Considering that there are a whopping 9 seasons, it'd be pretty ridiculous of me to try to review every episode one by one. That's why I'm going to be talking about each season as a whole. Before I talk more about FiM, I wanted to give a little background on my personal experience with the franchise. I was born in 1982, so I was the prime target audience for Hasbro and its animated shows back in the 80s, wanting me to beg my parents for all the toys they were making. Transformers and G.I. Joe were the two mainstays for me personally growing up. MLP, on the other hand, was more beloved by one of my sisters. We only had a single TV in the house, and watching cartoons was the only reason I was getting up early on a day where I didn't have to go to school. I didn't have a choice but to sit through the girly show about candy-colored horses before I could watch robots and army men shooting each other with lasers without anyone dying. Until the movies, that is. I took to Gen 1 MLP like any little boy would at the time. I didn't. My sister, on the other hand, loved it, and she was the reason we had any of the toys and merchandise in our house. Fast forward to the 90s, and my sister had moved on from cartoons altogether while I'm still watching them and eating up everything they had to sell me. Generation 2 and 3 of MLP were never relevant in our house, but from what I saw of those shows in recent years, they were absolute dreck. Then Friendship is Magic happened, and the friggin' floodgates were open. I was first made aware of the show after a good friend of mine showed me a random clip from the episode Bridal Gossip. The style of humor was far from what I expected about a show centered around what, to me, was one of the most little girl-centric franchises ever. It made me think of the same brand of humor from other shows like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which is ironic considering it shared the same creative talent of Lauren Faust, who headed up MLP FiM before she stepped down. The first episode I ever watched from start to finish was The Ticketmaster, and rather than feeling like a cringy barrage of cavity-inducing cuteness, there was something charming and funny there. I showed this episode to my sister and my mother, and MLP became more of a staple in our household than Transformers, which, let's be honest, wasn't in good shape in 2011, but that's another topic. I want to briefly go over some of the technical aspects of the show, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. The art style looks great from top to bottom, showcasing thick outlines and a bold, bright color palette. The animation is smooth and fluid, with characters that not only look good when walking or running, but are incredibly expressive. As someone who grew up seeing the early days of Flash animation in the 90s, it's incredible to see it match the quality of traditional hand-drawn cartoons. Also, I'm a sucker for swirly clouds. The only thing I can say about the sound design is how much I like the effects used when highlighting the comedic nature of the show.
There.
The music used is fantastic, and I'll cover that in a bit more detail later. Moving on to the main characters of the show, or the main six as they would be called, we have Twilight Sparkle, the well-read expert on unicorn magic. Applejack is the hardworking farm horse. Rainbow Dash is the athletic tomboy Pegasus who wants to join an elite flying group called the Wonderbolts. Rarity, who is an aspiring fashion designer and seamstress. Fluttershy, who takes care of animals and is incredibly timid. There's Pinkie Pie, who basically is Deadpool minus a homicidal streak that we know of. Outside of these characters, you also have Spike, who is a baby dragon with the personality of an approximate 8-year-old boy who assists Twilight and gets caught up in various adventures and antics that ensue. Providing voice talent, you have Tara Strong, Tabitha St. Germain, Ashley Ball, Andrea Libman, and Kathy Westlook, all of whom are very good at what they do and show off an impressive acting talent with their performances, and that's just the main characters. The season starts off with Twilight Sparkle being sent to Ponyville to study the magic of friendship by her mentor, Princess Celestia, played by Nicole Oliver, who is also the ruler of all ponies and is literally responsible for using her magic to raise the sun. Getting back to the plot, we see Twilight bond with the other main characters over the course of the season as we watch them grow, learning about what it means to be a good friend, if not a good person in general. The lessons of friendship presented throughout the show, serving to teach kids, can be hit or miss at times. Most of the lessons presented are certainly lessons kids should learn and are mostly harmless, but the narrative used to convey said lessons may not always be executed in the best way. When you only have roughly 20 minutes to get a message across, it can be rather daunting. But I will applaud the show for respecting its intended audience and even sliding in a few references here and there that adults might be the only ones old enough to pick up on. While the show follows the problem of the week formula, there is also the overarching narrative that involves the main characters preparing to attend the Grand Galloping Gala, which is a large-scale ball held once a year, and all 7 of our protagonists, yes, I include Spike, have grand expectations for. Twilight wanting to spend quality time with her mentor, Princess Celestia, Applejack hoping to raise money selling baked goods, Rarity hoping to find love with a prince, Rainbow Dash hoping to hang out with the Wonderbolts, Fluttershy wanting to make friends with the animals in the royal garden, Pinkie Pie wanting to attend the party of all parties, and Spike just wants to hang out with the main characters. Throughout the season, there are episodes reminding the audience about this grand event, which does a great job creating build-up. When the gala does happen in the finale, I feel it was a very interesting payoff. Season 1 makes a good first impression, bringing a level of charm and humor comparable to other popular shows you'd see on Cartoon Network like Adventure Time or the previously mentioned Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which is why I personally feel MLP managed to capture the interest of such a broad audience. But when analyzing each episode through a more critical lens, I do like a majority of the episodes. With all this being said, I'd like to get into some of the standout episodes of the season. Episode 8, Look Before You Sleep, was interesting in how it shows that while characters like Rarity and Applejack share a common friend in Twilight Sparkle, they clearly may not have cared for one another since, well, they're basically the friggin' odd couple. However, despite their differences, they learn from one another, find acceptance, and show some real growth. When it comes to making friends in the real world, it's no surprise that friends that you make may not like each other and may have to learn to get along with one another if they really care about being friends with you. Episode 11, Winter Wrap-Up, has my favorite song for the whole season. It's memorable, it's got a good tune, good lyrics, and a phenomenal performance by Rebecca Chiochet, who provided Twilight's singing voice. Seriously, this song is on par with, if not better than anything Disney songwriters could put out. The narrative of this episode also got to me on a personal level. The idea of Twilight wanting to join in with the town and find her place in helping out is unfortunately hindered at almost every turn to the point where she feels like she's useless and not good at anything. This is a feeling I'm sure any child has been in, and it certainly reminded this grown stallion about his own trials, tribulations, and failures, fitting into the point I never thought I could be good at anything. The feels were strong with me in this episode. I'll wrap up by talking about my favorite episode of the season, episode 26, The Best Night Ever. I absolutely loved this episode from top to bottom. As I mentioned earlier, this episode has been built up since episode 3, and expectations can be high for both the characters in the show and the audience itself. It would have been very easy for the creative team to come up with some new big bad antagonist and center the conflict around defeating it, but instead, the writers used this episode as an opportunity to teach the audience about high expectations and the reality of disappointment. I can remember being a kid and having grand expectations for a lot of things, only to find myself disappointed to find that reality was never going to be what I had hoped for. I'm sure this is no different with kids today, and it's one of those things everyone needs to learn how to deal with in life. But just because things don't turn out how you'd expect, that doesn't mean you can't find something to enjoy in the moment. The execution of this episode also drives the point home, as we see these characters like Rarity and Fluttershy completely pull a 180 in personality when they've been pushed to their mental limits.
Afraid to get dirty? You're going to love me!
Overall, Season 1 makes a very good first impression with its production value, performances, and most importantly, its charm, which I personally feel captured the interest of people of all ages. When compared to shows like Adventure Time, Regular Show, or even SpongeBob, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic may still lean more towards the cute end of the spectrum, but I think that is also why people enjoy it. It's a show that manages to hit just the right level of being adorable without being obnoxious like previous generations of the franchise. Aside from wanting to teach kids good morals, Friendship is Magic also respects its target audience. There's a reason I would happily rewatch many of the episodes I highlighted here, among many others. Despite how much I enjoyed the debut season, I can still understand why it's not for everyone. Any show, no matter its quality, is always going to have its haters. I'm not saying Friendship is Magic is perfect, but it certainly reaches greatness in my opinion. Which is why I give My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 1 a solid 4 out of 5.